Yeah, dry.
Get it?
All right.
Okay.
We're up.
All right, here we are. Welcome, each
Welcome,
other
welcome, welcome.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everyone. All right, I'm setting the 35-minute timer.
All right.
It'll let us know when we got 5 minutes left.
Okay. Very good. So shoot,
I'm Carmen,
Joe.
Nuga Honeypot, and I'm a beekeeper in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I have 35 hives, and I'm still in the fun zone.
No, you're not.
I am not. I'm not. You're right. I'm not.
You
I'm
passed
not.
that about April.
Yeah, I did. And then this is Joe. You introduce yourself.
Joe B. Whisper. I'm about an hour north of Carmen on the second mount range above north of Chattanooga, a little cooler climate. Uh, some differences there, but I don't know how many 25, 30 hives out there, maybe 10 mating nukes at this point, 12, something like it's past the fun zone, I can tell you.
So for those of you who haven't heard it before, we talk about, well, Joe a long time ago said the fun zone limit was 15. So if you have 15 hives or less, you're still in the fun zone. And
Yep.
I was like, that's not true. I didn't want to accept it. But I did have 25 last year, and that was still a fun zone for me.
I can
I
still
think,
have fun in them. That's not what I mean by that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's largely the fact that the more you get, the more work you're doing outside the bees for the time, the ratio of
yeah,
time that you do preparing to get in bees and taking care of them and seeing to them and their needs is like at first it's this and it's this because and two, you're not all that efficient. And then it's like this and
and
this.
then it's they take over your whole
Yeah,
life,
existence. Yeah.
and like you've got crap everywhere. You got beef stuff everywhere.
And you realize you're working for insects. That's that they give you orders and they tell you when you can get up, go, you got to go get a swarm, whatever. And yeah,
Yeah,
so I still have fun doing it,
yeah,
but the amount of time there's no comparison to when I had two or three hives back there, maybe even five. But
right.
there's no scale. There's really no money at that either, and all that whole bit. So
Yeah,
um,
you got to scale up a little bit to get anything back, really.
yeah. I mean, you can get. Dad kept two to four for over 20 years, I guess, and roughly 20 years. And he
Hmm.
always had plenty of quarts of sourwood honey and he would give to the family and stuff, but he didn't make a big deal out of it. And he never had over four that I remember. And he had them in a good spot. And I don't know that he messed with them all that much, but he wasn't trying to make any money off of it. And so that's, you know, uh, I've got a little brother that says he can enjoy a hobby about 45 minutes before he starts thinking of ways to make money with it.
Oh, that's me. That's definitely me.
When
Yeah.
you're trying to start a revenue stream with it, and for
Mhm.
me, it was once I got up to where I could look on the books and say, well, I've spent $2,100 in equipment. I've spent over 2,000, and over a period of 2 or 3, 4 years, you know, I said, no, nah, to myself, I
Mhm.
can't justify that without bringing some back in, and that's
Right.
probably the decision that there was no point of no return. Just um,
Yeah.
because I haven't gotten back to, I don't know. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's
Thoughts?
something interesting to talk about because I'm sure every beekeeper feels that. And I've mentees this year for the first time, and they're all like some of them are already like I think I could probably have four next year, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It just if you got it in you and you get like the sting, you got it and you just keep go like me, I started with one. And I feel like though between 35 and 40 is pretty much that's good. I'm holding, I don't
Are
when I
you
started
now?
out.
We did one of these several months ago coming out of winter, and you said, I have
I know,
27.
I
So
know, I know,
it
I
seems
know.
to be gaining on you.
No, but I'm
It's none of my
holding.
business. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Okay. But I'm at hold. If
Okay.
somebody comes my way and they need something, I'll do, of course I will foster them, but we're like bee foster parents.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all we are. Just look at it that way. You're
yeah,
helping.
yeah. And I certainly don't want to discourage anybody. There's very few things
Hmm.
that have brought the value to my life that bees have. And
Ditto.
working with the bees, and you meet a lot of great people, but just particularly out there with the bees, it's very therapeutic. It always has been. And
Yeah,
uh,
I agree.
so yeah,
There's something special about it. So we
mhm.
thought today that we would talk a little bit about frames because a lot of people uh don't know a lot about frames, different types of frames. It's a quite, I mean, there could be a whole class on just frames.
Yeah,
Um, so that's what we figured that we would look at today. And also maybe Joe might have a picture of a good frame. So what does a good frame look like going into winter, going into fall? Because to me, in my head, we're already going into winter. That's just this is how it
it's
works. It's
it's
the summer, but we're
it's
prepping.
it's pretty much okay. I'm going to show you one just because I know where it is. I'm going to go ahead and show you
Mhm.
this frame, and that's more of a spring, early summer. It's full up with brood. Notice that there are there. What I like to see is I like to see capped stores on every. I want to see capped honey. You notice this right here is honey, and there will be a band of pollen inside that. This is a little yellow. You can't orangey, but you really can't tell. But that's pollen, and then inside that is capped brood, which is pupating. Larva that's in the pupating phase and will be an adult in the next 10 days or so. And so I had that one handy. I'm just going to go ahead and show you that.
Wait,
Yeah,
I don't want you to take it off there for a second because
no, go ahead.
I want people to realize that the reason for the honey on the top and that pollen on top, it's because the nursery bees, that's where they go to feed the larva, to feed the babies. So that's just, it's
Handy.
amazing that every frame is just like a self-sustainable. You've got your kitchen there and you've got
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
you
yeah.
need on that frame. So that's why you want to see the pollen, the
Right.
nectar, and the capped honey.
And on that, you can think of or I think of the like a brood nest. Let's pretend frames don't exist, that there's just this nebulous home that they have. A brood nest coming out of winter is almost nothing. And by brood nest, we mean this right here. We mean you
Hmm.
babies. We mean young. And so it can be collapsed down to almost nothing. And you've got a cluster of bees that are running around getting some carbs and warming up. And that could be a big cluster or small. But they're in a sphere, in nature more so than here, but even here they'll be in a sphere. So they will be typically here where it's a little cooler. They will start laying in the top. Let's say we have two boxes. They will start laying toward the top because they've eaten out most of that in winter, and that so this whole band of everything will swell. It will begin to expand, and then it will begin to go down because they will start pushing it down by storing carbs, honey, on top, and so they'll move down and move down and move down, and it will bring out to a point. And then right now, when pollen's scarce and nectar is getting scarce, they'll start retracting. And so this thing is alive. It's an entity of
Yeah,
itself.
right.
And just wanted to add that to what you said.
No, it's good. And the hive that I went into today has one frame at least that looks exactly like this one. And I was like, wow, what are you doing, lady? But this is the queen that swarmed in maybe October,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was. And it was just a cluster, that could have fit in my hands. And I overwintered them in my apame, and now they're just busting.
Oh, you can't catch
So,
you can't catch those late fall
no.
clusters. They're
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
They're gonna
yeah.
die.
They're
Yeah,
gonna
no.
die. They're gonna
They're
die.
thriving. And I couldn't believe I pulled that frame out. And I had all my stuff, I was full of all my honey and all that stuff, so I didn't have time to take a photo of it, but it looked exactly like that. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, let me see here. I'm gonna see if I can get to
While he's looking for that, I just
go
wanted to
ahead.
show you because we're just talking about frames anyway, and I thought I would show
Right.
you just a frame that's kind of had some wax moths on it. You can see the wax moths embed into the frame, and I just had this frame these bees absconded a while
Hmm.
ago, and so I was just cleaning out this this box. And so you can see it's just a way to know, like, what is that? Some
let
people
me
say,
stop sharing so we can see that better. Okay.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's crazy looking. If you have never had bees,
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was the first time I saw it. And
And you know what else I realized? They will burrow holes into the woodenware.
mhm,
When I was like all of the that's a hole from a freaking wax moth. It
yeah.
and it's a lot. I mean, I don't have anything to stick in there with me, but it it surprised me. I didn't realize that it was gonna go that they could go so deep.
Yeah, and
But anyway,
they're tiny little fragile things when they first start out. And of course, they will burrow through a frame of cells, and they will eat pollen, they will eat brood, they will eat whatever. They're after protein primarily. But then
mhm.
when they get ready to spin a cocoon, I don't care. It seems like if you've got bricks in that thing, they can make one. I mean, if you can
Yeah,
chew wood, if you're this long and a worm and you
it can
make your
make that.
cocoon out of the one, I yeah,
That's
that's
a
the
lot.
thing.
I feel like you went a little blurry.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought it was just my glasses, but let me make sure. Make sure. All right, hang on. I'm gonna stop my video side and then start it back and see if I
Okay,
pick it back. Okay, yeah, I think that cleared me up.
there you go. There
It's
you
probably coming
go.
off the
I'm gonna
share
show
screen.
I'm gonna
Go
show
ahead.
another
Go ahead.
cookie frame while you're
Mhm.
thinking or doing whatever it is.
Doing.
This was just an interesting. There's just like random patches of honey on this one.
Yeah, and it's capped. It's finished.
Capped honey, ready to go. You know it. But like, what happened to the rest of it, guys? What
Yeah.
are we
And
doing
for
here?
And for those of
I'm
you who
gonna.
don't know, that's with a black plastic foundation that has
Mhm.
a hexagonal pattern on it. We do that to help them really with the symmetry, help us with the symmetry. But
You can see where they
yeah,
started.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I've
I
got,
thought that was kind of wild.
and if you jumping into a different but same kind of thing,
Mhm.
we talk about okay frames, and what we're typically doing here is Langstroth frames. And I want to show, okay, when let's say you're looking down at the top view and you put new frames in, you want these sidebars to touch. They're
Mhm.
made to allow adequate bee space so that the bees will build both these combs out and have just enough space that they're comfortable roaming in there. You do not want to have them like that. Because
Right.
if you mess up and leave a frame out, and let's say you've got a uh, it doesn't matter how many frames are in a box. Let's see you leave a gap, then you end up if they have a gap over about 3/8 of an inch, which I don't know what that is in metric, or I would do it. Here's a frame, and this is one where over the
Ugh.
winter I just grabbed 4 frames of bees and put them over in an easy nuke, and they just made another one. They just attached their own frame to this. And so this is a little hard to deal with, especially if you're trying to find a queen and she's in that gap.
Oh my
And so,
gosh. That's a tough situation if you get it because I don't even like you can't do anything with them. You
no,
got to remember to push your frames, but not only just pushing the two side by side, but when you are done in your box, push all of them in the center.
yeah, yeah,
All the
push them.
frames, center them. Because if you leave a gap on either side, you're going to get some wonkiness like that.
And
And you can smush your queen.
yeah, yeah. Ironically, like, okay, here's one. It's not as impressive as your capped honey frame, but like this is when I put extra wax on these, but this is just starting out. This is just a few thousand bees for, half a day or something. They just
Right.
start bringing those out from the center. And I will add the caveat to like, here's a frame. There you go.
What's happening on this?
I don't know. Same kind of deal. Put that back. It's not that kind of.
Yeah.
So this is one where I've extracted honey out of it. But ironically, if you put 2 of these together after they've been capped, they tend to know where this boundary is, and
Hmm.
so afterwards, if let's say I put the side of that one, I'm just going to pretend it's normal on both sides. I could actually have a little bit of a gap, not a huge gap, but I could have a little
Yeah.
gap. And it's primarily it's when they're first starting them out that you don't want to leave them that big space because they just go, you know,
Right.
they don't make you something workable to pull up and check.
And just to show you, there's a yellow
mhm.
plastic foundation and there's a black. So
Yeah,
you'll see either one of these interchangeably. It's the same. They're the same
right.
thing. People have preferences. If you ask people, they say, "Oh, my bees can draw out on the yellow, but they won't use the black."
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
whatever,
And some
whatever.
people are
Like
pure, you know,
it
try to
is what it
be,
is.
yeah. It's
I
just
mean, I'm
it,
kind of a purist. Like I definitely prefer using wax foundation, but if I have these for free and I know the bees are going to use it, I'm going to use it.
yeah.
So um, it saves money if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have those. And I've got something I pulled today. I was going to show you that I've had these frames for a while, and
Mhm.
they're extra small. I don't remember the name.
Mhm.
It's not medium. They're smaller than that.
You
Do you
mean
know the name?
top to bottom?
This part.
Yeah, shallow is the next
Yeah,
one down.
shallows. Right,
Yeah.
right, shallows. So I don't see like backyard beekeepers using the shallows.
Dad
I feel
used
like
nothing but shallow. He put two deep boxes, which for folks that don't know, these frames are 9.5 inches, I want to think. And again,
mhm.
I don't know the metric equivalent right offhand. I always do my temperatures in both,
And then this
but
one.
and then the medium, yep,
So so you do that and then you
yeah, yeah,
normally put this one on top,
yeah.
right? So
Mediums. That's
these are
probably
these are mediums and that's kind of what I've seen people using. So
yeah.
I
It is
wonder,
it is the most common setup. And if I was doing honey just for the weight, because a medium box that's full, a 10 frame box that's full is probably going to weigh 60 pounds
it's insane.
and it's stuck to the box under it. So you're prying it up and
It's
you're, you
crazy.
know, and you,
Hmm.
unless you have cleats on them or some kind of handles, you're putting your fingers in a little bitty slot, you know, that's
Yeah.
been kind of dadoed in or
Lots of
cut
problems.
in, lots of issues. And so
Yeah.
I run all deeps pretty much. I've got a few mediums out there, but it's because I raise bees and not honey. And so I'm very
Right, right.
when I do pull honey, I don't pull whole boxes most of the time. I'm like,
Yeah, I
I'll
don't
grab 4 or
either.
5 frames out of
That's what
this
I
one,
do.
2 frames out of that one,
So
and go
this
at it like that.
shallow, I think this shallow came from previously a commercial beekeeper's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that I know personally.
Yeah,
Um, and I was like, let me just see how,
yeah,
but both of them have comb underneath them because they don't fit the boxes.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm gonna grab one and you go ahead and talk about something. I'm gonna grab one and
yeah,
come
yeah.
back.
You need and it needs to fit the box regardless. So this is a license. This is not a wooden box that you'll normally see, but you see how close to the bottom. Of course, those should be scooched together. Let me see. Probably should have thought about this in the kitchen. But so you got just that little bit of space to allow the bees to crawl under them and over the frame in the box above them. But this is again is about 9.5 or 10 inches deep. I don't remember right offhand, and a little bit of space on top. But your typical deep frame, most I would wager that most backyard beekeepers do use the mediums, which is 6.5, 7 inches tall, about yay much, that Carmen was holding up a few minutes ago. And they are much easier. Some of your extracting equipment, the hobby extracting equipment, which is pretty much what I got. I've got an electrical one now, but it caters more to putting mediums in. Some of it, they're just easier to handle. And if I was doing honey and that was my primary focus, I'd have a lot of mediums. I had several boxes starting out, but I'm going to go ahead and while she's finding her next exhibit there.
I'm coming.
All right, then I won't.
I'm killing a million hive beetles on one of these frames right here.
All right, you go ahead and kill that, and I'm going to hunt my other thing down.
But I got this beauty right here. Okay, here we go. I did kill just now about 15 hive beetles.
Okay,
Okay,
good for
so
you.
I want to
Good
show you
for.
the size difference. This is hard to keep in one hand. Okay, here we go. Boop. You see how it's just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
little bit on the bottom there, and you can see how they filled that gap up.
So you've got a shallow and a medium there.
That was a shallow and a medium, and you
Yeah.
can see this is pretty small.
One good thing about shallows, and I guess it would apply to mediums, but you notice that's just plain wax comb. There's no foundation in it.
They did it themselves, right?
Yeah,
So keep
and
going.
it'll hold together. It's more structurally sound. Like
I'm
if
gonna grab something.
let's say I wanted to take this deep and I wanted to not have this foundation in here, either because I don't believe in it, or I'm going to cut comb honey out of it, or for whatever reason. And a lot of people don't use the black foundation or yellow foundation or whatever, or wax foundation. Um,
Oh, buddy.
this, once they start building from the top and they come down
Mhm.
this far, and then it's like, I don't know, I want to say it's 19 inches. That doesn't seem right. But however long this is, this thing is well, for one thing, it's 90 degrees, so 34 Celsius in the hive a lot of times. So this thing is floppy, it's flexible, and it's very easy to turn one of these up and look at the other side and just have it fall out on you. So most people will put, a lot of times the frames will have holes here, and they will put either fishing line or some other method. There's several methods you can use, but that's a popular one, to put fishing line across this in lieu of, instead of a foundation, and they'll just build down over the fishing line to give it some structural support. You don't need structural support on that little shallow that you've
Yeah,
got.
this is pretty small, but also this is about a little over 4 inches. And I know that because this is a 4x4
Cutter.
thing that cuts out honeycomb, and it's almost the perfect
Yeah,
size, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that that is what the shallows were for.
yeah,
Just kind of
probably.
feel like they were for that, because when I've had one before, and it does about 5 of these. So anyway, it's just a cool, it's real small and I kind of like it. It's just kind of a neat, I don't know, it's kind of neat.
It
But also
is.
you can see these big cells over here
Uh-huh.
that were probably drone cells, maybe gonna
Probably.
be or something.
Yeah, yeah. That's they may have had a round of drones in them. I'm gonna pull up one more here.
Okay.
This is something I love seeing.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Um,
look at all that different color pollen.
if I see different color pollen and a decent population of bees
Mhm.
and a few eggs, I can, as far as just if I'm calling this an inspection, I can close the box. I don't care what else
Yeah,
I see. I don't need to see anything else, because
that was beautiful.
but even it's rare that you will see, well, I won't say it's rare. Depends on what you've got in your area, but a lot of times you won't, like you'll see only two colors,
Mhm.
yellow, orange, or whatever you have around. That's pollen that they put in there, little by little, that they're making bee bread and they're going to feed babies. That's their protein source. If I like to see this, we showed earlier a ring around the brood, in between the carbs, in between the honey and the brood, so that they could get to it fast, because bees will move liquid. They won't usually move it after it's capped, but like nectar, I've had them move crazy amounts of nectar in a very short period of time. Like if they're all stuffed up and I put a fresh box on, just they decide in 2 or 3 hours, and they draw comb and put nectar in it. They'll
Hmm.
move loose liquid around, but pollen, I don't think they will move. And
Mm-mm.
so this nurse bee is going to have to eat this, and she's going to have to make some royal jelly and squeeze that out of her head and give it to little bitty babies. And then I guess at the 3, 4, 5, 6 day, well, so depending on if you're counting, let's say from the egg, they're going to feed it directly to babies. Is that right? As bee
Hmm.
bread.
Yeah, and
And
that's what I think that shiny stuff is fermented pollen, and
mhm,
that's the bee bread, which a
yeah,
lot of people don't talk about that.
yeah. And of course, we could get off on a whole thing that both drones and workers get weaned off onto a high protein diet with this, whereas
Mhm.
queens take royal jelly for the whole, you know, development cycle. But that's maybe another story for another day.
Yeah.
If I don't see store, and there are times of year when you don't see a lot of stored pollen. Like I can go out there sometimes and crack a hive and hardly find any protein.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel good when I do, because it historically it's been that, it's let me know that things are good. But if I don't see that band around it, but I see a bunch of brood, so I'm seeing all this capped brood with this leathery looking cap on it. I hope I see pollen on the frame adjacent to it, facing it like this, because they don't like to go far with
Right.
it either. So it's their nature to make that, as the eggs and everything, they start feeding, and then storing the pollen a little further out, moving around. And it's a whole thing. And you can really screw them up, because I have done it, making splits and stuff and removing this without paying attention. So maybe
Yeah.
you've got a 10 frame box and you've got 2 great frames of pollen, and you take them out and you put them over here, 5 frames over here, and you don't realize you've done it, but you've taken 90% of the stored pollen out of the hive over here.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
end up with some sick bees over here that have nothing else generally wrong with them, because they don't have, adequate protein and nutrients to feed the worker force that's coming up. And this year I've kind of went in on nutrition a lot, and particularly this, because when I see a
Yeah, me too.
problem manifest, yeah, 80-90% of the time, if it's a hive wide problem that manifests and it's not something stupid and obvious that I've done, then it's a lack of pollen. It's a lack of protein.
Yeah.
Uh, and
I've
that's usually
bought,
from something stupid I've done, but go ahead.
right. Well, yeah. So in the split, I have a split that I did a couple months ago, and a colony that just was busting at the seams.
Mhm.
And I showed some of my mentees how to do the split. And I went in there, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe last week, and I realized they didn't have a lot of pollen stores. So I bought some pollen patties for the
Mhm.
first time ever, by the way, and put them in there. And when I went back, a week later, they were gone. So that showed me they needed it. And I was right in that. So little
I
listen to your gut tip, but
Yeah,
they need it sometimes.
I had one coming out of spring here 3 years ago, I think, and I saw some babies hatching or emerging. People get freakish about that, but chewing their way out, some worker bees that had deformed wing virus. And that's something I do not see here ever. And I got I'm
Hmm.
looking around for pollen, and there's zero protein in here. And so I did the same thing. I put a little pollen patty on them, and I poured some nurse bees down. I shook some nurse bees down in the front and put about maybe a pound of nurse bees and let them crawl up through there. And the queen turned it right around. They boomed all year.
Nice. Yep.
But it was my fault. I'm sure. I'm 90% sure that in some point later in the season than I should have, I removed what they had stored, because they're
Yeah.
careful. They're
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and that's
Yeah, and that was my bad. That was my bad with the split. And that's the black queen. I mean, she's beautiful. So now my challenge is to keep them alive, over winter.
and
But I'm gonna do my best.
boy, you'll do all right. You're doing great. You're getting
Thanks.
it's going to be 150 hives in 2 years, 3 years, and I'm really going to be
No,
laughing, but over the fun zone of
no,
where it went.
false, false.
But that,
If I had a partner, if I had someone to do it with me, I would be open to it. But there's no heckin' way I can do it by myself.
yeah, no, I'll get to, if I have a stressful week at work, I'm like, well, I guess I could always do bees, and then I start running in my head what the numbers would have to be, and I'm like, yeah, no.
Exactly. You're like, nope, it's a TV time or the couch or something. Read a
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
especially in the summer, man. It's hard. Whew,
one
hard to get
thing,
motivated.
uh, one thing that I will, in agreement, and again, I'm going to stop the share, and then, or hang on, I'm going to stop my video and redo it, because I think it's
Okay.
squirrely after I do a share. Um, okay, I think that's better. You said something that is valuable, and that is you saw that they didn't have pollen, you put pollen patties on them. Uh, all these issues, no matter if it is the beekeeper's fault, once you learn what you're looking at and what you're
Right.
looking for, you can rectify the
Hmm.
damage that probably you did. Or,
Yeah.
not always, but um,
Yeah, but most of the time.
yeah,
I mean, if you're being honest, you screwed it
yeah,
up.
yeah. It's more me than it is them. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I agree, but you have to pay attention. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see a lot of people having a hard time with because they just think, well, bees know, there's the attitude of the bees know best. I'm just going to leave them in the backyard and they'll give me some honey next year. That's not always the truth. There's a lot of things going on with the bees that, it's like if you want to get milk from a cow, like, are you just going to leave it in the pasture and hope next year it's fine? Probably not.
Yeah,
You're probably
yeah,
going to tend to it and take care of it. It's a livestock. Treat animals and insects as such,
right,
and
right.
they will fruit.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and if you've got, my moratorium on having mic conversations, so I'll make this quick. But I do in the winter, I do some oxalic acid treatments while they don't have brood, and that's that. And because
Hmm.
there is no, to the best of my knowledge, I have some very, very, very tough bees, and there's nothing that's bulletproof against varroa mites. And so I go ahead and knock them down, excepting the ones that I'm actually doing experiments on.
Right, right,
And
right, right.
I will
Same.
likely, I will likely drop that because I think they've proven everything they need to prove to me
Yeah.
over the past few years. And but that's just like if you have a dog that's got ticks all over, what are you going to do? You're going to walk off? No, you're going to, you're going to get them off there.
Hmm.
And so I think when you take them out of a tree and put them in a box, bees, you owe them a little bit. You owe them a minimum level of care. And that would
Yeah.
be with any animal that that you're trying to raise. Speaking of animals, take it away there. I want to bring something in, and I don't have it sitting right
Take it
here.
away.
So take
Okay,
off on
I'm
something.
taking it. I'm taking it away. Okay, so the moral of the story is, just talking about frames, just get experience looking at frames, not just the queen. A lot of people only focus on the queen, but there's more to focus on. You need to know what you're looking at when you go into your hive and when you're looking at your frames. You can tell a lot by how your bees are doing just by seeing what they have stored in the frames and what's going on in there. Also, if you open up your hive body and you pull out frames that are just full of nectar and wet stuff, then they might be honey bound. So, like, knowing all those little things are very useful. And is that a little bird? What is that? A little chicken? A little baby? Oh my gosh, I have nectar coming out of this frame.
There he is.
That's
Hey, Bumbler.
a little baby.
Hey, Bumbler.
Oh my goodness. That's so cute.
It's a button
That's so
quail.
tiny.
It is so small, its feet are bigger than it. It's so funny.
It's a what?
It's a button quail. Here, look at the camera, Bumbler.
Did Hey, where did you get that? Where'd you get it?
I hatched it,
Stop.
but I
Oh my
didn't lay the
gosh.
egg. So that's,
Okay, well,
hang
that's
on.
good to know. Oh my gosh, your dog heard my dogs, and my dogs heard your dogs, and vice versa. Well, here's Lucas. Here's Lucas Badukas. He's my baby. Yeah.
All right.
There's Lucas. He's hearing your dog. Like, what's going on, man?
Yeah, and I put my in-ear monitors
Okay.
in earlier, thinking, well, that will keep my dog from your dog, but it won't because I'm still using the mic off the webcam. So
Yeah, and mine just
there,
burped.
damn hush.
Okay, get down. Well, all right.
Okay,
Let's see how much longer we got. We
well,
got about 6 minutes total. I don't know what else.
I think there's a good spot for stopping. Uh, we can do something on hive inspections and what you're doing when you're looking at them live. This was as
That's a
far
good
as
idea.
show and tell. This was a good thing to
Hmm.
just, here's the equipment, here's some things to look for, and get maybe a little more involved in that. And certainly, if anybody's got any, we've both taught beekeeping and mentored folks officially and unofficially and whatever. And
Unofficially. I mean, come on. So
a
it's all
lot,
unofficial.
a lot of unofficial on my end.
It's all unofficial.
Well, yeah, I'm using that term loosely, but
No,
you
I
know what I'm
like it.
saying.
That's funny.
And
Um,
so there is a
yeah,
list
but
of topics that we typically cover. In fact, And I've got a course in development that I thought I would roll out by this spring and didn't make it. I'm not satisfied with it, so hopefully next spring. But I said that to say this. I say the same thing to uh, I don't know, 75 people every year. I have the same hour long or 30-minute long conversation with that many people. And that's what kind of led me to believe it's like, no, even with all the information out there, there are people who either don't get their information that way or they want to get it from a firsthand account, someone with experience, and the same
Yeah.
thing. And so we tend to roll down. It might not be exactly methodical, but if
Yeah.
we're doing one of these during a time of year, it's generally something relevant to that time of year.
Right.
Um,
And
and
in our area, which is Eastern Tennessee,
right,
considering,
right.
so I think that this area, I mean, what would you say the span would be for us? Like when we say Eastern Tennessee, what do we mean? Because I can't help but think we've got to add a little bit of North Georgia to it. Because
Yeah,
I'm 10 minutes from North Georgia, from Georgia. So
it is so weird, and we can touch on that for just a few minutes, if you want. Like you were in Chattanooga, of course you're down in a bowl. There are, to the best of
yeah.
my knowledge, no mountains past you going south. So you've got all that south coming up there, and then all of a sudden there's Signal Mountain or that whole range, and then the
Hmm.
Squatchy Valley, and then us on the next mountain over in the Cumberland Plateau. And it makes for hot,
So
and it's a long dry, it's a long growing season, so you got that wonderful little bit. You could pull off multiple crops of stuff,
hmm.
because you've got some warm weather early and you've got some warm weather late, but it also makes you suffer in the middle of it if you're doing
Yeah.
agriculture. There's a because what was it, maybe 10 days ago that you were talking about absolutely nothing going on over there, and I'm out
Yeah.
here putting sucrose syrup out, and the bees are not even interested. And I knew what was up every time I do that, find
Yeah.
whatever they're working, and I had to walk 20 feet, and they're, just a few steps, and sumac was blooming. Well, we didn't have a lot of water, but we still had
Hmm.
nectar. And in fact, they're still working something. I don't know what they're working right now, probably finishing up sourwood, and other things. I mean, and of course, I've got acres of weeds and just, whatever came up. And, but
But
good.
I was gonna just to add to that, it also gets so dry here
Mm-hmm.
that things bloom quickly and then they leave quickly. So that's what I'm noticing. We did have sumac, but it's past the bloom and it
Mm-hmm.
didn't last very long, and that's what I notice. Like in the summer months, like
Mm-hmm.
what's that? What's blooming now? It's like red. They look like little fireworks on a
Mimosa.
tree. Yeah. I don't see that and crepe myrtle.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see a lot of bees on that stuff. So my bees are pulling in some kind of orange pollen that I noticed today in one of my
Mm-hmm.
hives on my front porch. And I'm gonna try to see if I can figure out how to do some beelining because I
Mm-hmm.
really want to learn. I want to learn how to do that. So I'm gonna see if I can figure that out next couple
I'll
days.
I'll tell that story when I have more time to tell it. But that was my first
Okay.
experience with bees, was an afternoon with my dad, uh, and he called it coursing bees because that's what his grandfather taught him. And
Oh.
I will get the very abridged version is we were in the back. What, this house wasn't here. He just cleared this field. He was feeding hay to a few cattle, and he would just feed it on the ground in different places to seed the ground. And we came over here one Sunday afternoon with some honey, and he had a popsicle stick and some matches, and I don't know what. So we put some honey out on, I don't remember, stump or something over here, and nothing. And we're waiting on a bee to find this honey, and it seemed like 1,000 years, but it was probably 10 minutes, nothing,
Yeah.
you know. And so he puts some on a popsicle stick and he lights it, and he had some wax, he had some wax like comb honey. And so he had some wax and some honey, and he just got it hot enough that fumes were coming off it. And
Hmm.
we had a bee in 5 minutes, and then we had another bee. Well, we didn't have many bees on that whole thing, but so the whole experience was hour and a half maybe. But
Yeah.
they with this cleared field, he knew exactly the direction they were taking. Once they were loaded, they were going back home.
Hmm.
And so he didn't measure distance so much. And then years later, I had the same experience. There was some black bees going in one direction from where I was feeding, and then at some point it dawned on me to set up another feeder up here in a clear cut, probably 150 yards, meters away. And in each case, once I knew where the bees were going, I took my compass on my phone, and just kind of pointed it where the bees were going, and took a screenshot of it, and
Hmm.
then found a thing online and put those two lines together to where they would intersect from my house, over a
Oh,
Google
cool.
Map. And it was months before I went up there, but those bees were not 100 feet in a tree. They were not 100 feet from where those two lines intersected. So
That's
it does
cool.
work. And if you've got,
Yeah,
I figured if I had two coordinates, I wouldn't have to figure the distance so much.
right.
So that's handy. But
Yeah, I try to see, I mean, I've got like so many flight lines where I'm sitting. I see like 10 just from here. So
yeah,
it gets kind of confusing because I'm in the city, so
right.
I'm urban and I can't just go through someone's house to follow this beeline, and they're going like over the rooftops and I mean, I was out in my little kiddie pool the other day and I saw some bees way above in a tree I'd never seen before, but they were going somewhere. And I
Mhm.
thought, what hive is that? Who's doing that, right? And it just made me think it'd be really cool if I could do that in this area, but it's going to be maybe difficult because I can't just walk a straight line there, but I can try to figure it out.
Well, think of that. I mean, that's the best advice I have. If you know a direction and it's a consistent direction more than one day, at least, just pop a compass open, take a screenshot,
Yeah,
and
it's a good idea.
that way find north and put your compass on north, then take a screenshot, and they're going such east,
Right.
so many degrees.
Hmm.
And if you ever get them in two directions, you can lay that sucker on a map. And
I want to try to use the powdered sugar thing, but I don't really know how to do it. But we don't have to talk about it right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll
I want to learn.
cover everything every day.
We can do that at another
Sure.
subject
Absolutely.
if I
Yeah.
actually get it done. You could talk more about it, and I
All
can
right.
talk about my experience of it. Um,
Well, I
but
guess
yeah,
is that a wrap?
that's a wrap. And then if anybody has any questions, just leave them in our comments, and we're happy to
Right.
answer
Or
or discuss
ideas
it.
for another one or whatever,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
find out what it's doing in your area, how much experience you have,
Hmm.
and what you would like to know. And if we know it,
Right. That's the big if.
that's always an if, and I'm leery of anyone who tells me otherwise. There's a lot of words being slung out of a lot of beekeeper mouths, and they're not always accurate. So I try to just
That's
stay on
truth.
okay, I'm over here in third grade after several
Yeah.
years, and they still do stuff that surprises me. Um, but and it's been a wonderful experience, but it's a learning experience, and I don't think I'll live long enough to get them figured out. So
No, none of us will.
there's too much going on in the dark in there, and
Yeah.
I've read thousands of hours. I've probably spent at this point thousands of hours in them. And no, I don't consider myself. Forget credentials, forget what you've read, forget what If I'm really honest with myself, I'm probably in the first semester of third grade. I'm confident about what I know there.
What you have, right? Yeah, yeah,
But it's all this other
yeah.
stuff that if we're talking polynomials or what, I'm not
It's
there.
like
I'm not there.
there are so many ways to focus on just one thing
Yeah,
alone.
one aspect of it.
I mean, you could spend your whole life just on pollen.
Yeah, sure.
So many things, so many things. But I think that's the thing that attracts some people to it is just being able to be a lifelong learner.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just a cool invitation to people who, have thought about doing it before. Anyway, okay, I
All
gotta
right.
go to this thing. And it was good talking to you
You and you out there
and all the people,
and
people
the
on the internet.
internetosphere. See you later.
All right, I'll see you.
See ya.